Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei saved by Irina instead of Rias part 2. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video, and also go support the Azurknight for writing that awesome fanfic. Let's start this video. Issei and Yuma are standing in line to get their tickets for the movie and talk about how scary it may be. To get Issei hot and bothered, Yuma presses herself against him with a look of anticipation. Issei is feeling lucky since one of Yuma's boobs is pressing against his arm and he gets flustered from feeling it. Yuma, still looking anticipated, clings to her boyfriend. "I hope this movie isn't too scary. I get easily scared," she weakly says to him. In her mind, however, Rainer's thoughts are quite different. This guy is getting horny from just arm to boob contact. Issei scratches the back of his head and just reminds of her of the obvious. It's just a movie, Yuma, a very scary and bloody movie, but just a movie. He also gives her a little pat on the head. She is actually annoyed by this gesture. "I'm not a fucking pet, you idiot." She thinks this but has a smile on her face and clings harder to him. The next minute after getting into the theater is just them getting snacks for the movie, and they each get their own drinks and share a bucket of popcorn. Nothing particularly big happens during the initial time of getting to the seats, resting down, and getting comfortable in their seats. Unfortunately, the air conditioner is broke and the theaters are hot. As a result, the drinks have ice, so it should be okay. Before the trailers begin to play, Issei looks at Yuma with clear anxiety for the movie. "If you get scared, Yuma, you can get closer to me," he somewhat nervously tells her. Yuma giggles cutely and doesn't lose her sweet aura while replying, "I know you won't let me be scared and alone, Issei." This is what she says, but inside, Rainer is feeling different. God, and here I thought I'd make him cream in his pants before he pissed in it. Guess this has to be some scary shit or something. True to the genre, the movie is really scary, and Issei is trembling a little because of the suspense, distrust, and scares. He doesn't pee his pants like Rainer expects, but she is getting too much into the movie to even notice or care. She wants to laugh a little, but doesn't because it might give her ruse away a little. Issei, thinking that now may be an opportunity, puts his hand a little closer to Yuma's, which she notices from his hand touching hers. She decides to tease him a little and puts on a smirk that he can't see because of his focus and wraps herself a little around his arm and makes sure that his arm is pressed against her breasts. "Let's see if this gets his wick burning," she thinks to herself. Issei, just as she suspects, immediately takes notice as his face turns red. He looks over to his side to see Yuma looking afraid with her eyes shut and quivering a little from fear. He looks at his arm and sees where it is, and his head starts emitting steam for seeing and feeling something soft, firm, and just very great. Yuma lets her eye open just a little and is rather content with his reaction. She just reconfirms his virgin status as a means of seeing how easy it is to get him to do what she wants later. The film ends after another hour, and the two did find it entertaining in their own ways. The date is successful to Issei since he got some arm boob twice today, but he also notices something about Yuma. She is sweating a little. The theater was hot enough to get her sweating, and so he can see some sweat drops drip between her breasts, giving them a shine that he takes an immediate notice of. Despite the sight, he decides to be considerate towards her and pulls out his wallet to look at his funds. He then gets a brilliant idea. "Do you want to go for an ice cream?" he asks Yuma. Feeling a little heated from inside that theater, Yuma nods with a smile, and her thoughts have no additional comments since she really wants something cold as her drink didn't last very long because of the heat. Immediately heading towards an ice cream store, Issei and Yuma waste no time getting an order, with Issei getting a cheesecake flavor and Yuma getting strawberry flavor. While she does like it, Yuma's Rainer is getting annoyed with how long her contact is taking with getting what she needs for her spell, and taking longer may lead to problems. Needing some time to herself to think, Yuma decides to leave. "I have to go do something for a friend, Issei. But I'll call you in a little bit," she politely tells him. Issei eats his ice cream and keeps his plain look. "Okay, I'll just go shop around or something," he replies to her as she walks away. Rainer walks away and begins biting her cone after finishing her scoop while thinking of her plan. "If that piece of shit priest can't find that last ingredient, I'm screwed. I'm taking too long as it is, and Lord Azazel may get too suspicious of my liberal time use of my mission. If questions me. I suppose I can just say I'm being cautious." Her thoughts dull her worries a little, but they aren't enough to completely quell them. While this happens, she sees someone who appears to be trying to get her attention, a man with a short stature and wearing a priest outfit with an uneasy grin. He walks from behind and then gets next to her and moves closer. Rainer instantly recognizes him and she looks annoyed with him. "Took you long enough. Were you screwing yourself or something?" she asks him sarcastically. The man, with vulgarity in his eyes, simply smirks and gets her to follow him, sending a sign that he has something to say privately. Without much thought, the two walk into an alley and talk about what they need to talk about. Elsewhere, Issei has found himself exploring Kuo a little more until he comes across the harbor by just wandering around. Even though he isn't too interested, he decides to simply check out the area a little more just to kill time while waiting for Yuma to call him back. No one is here for unknown reasons, but Issei isn't really finding it strange. Out of the corner of his ear, he hears a voice calling for him. "Hey, could you bring that over to me, kid?" He can clearly hear. Issei looks over and sees a man wearing a robe waving at him, and he looks near his feet to see a colorful looking object near his feet. He picks it up and holds while the man nods and waves for him to bring it. Being polite, Issei runs over to help the guy out and do something good while waiting. Upon getting closer, Issei gets a better look at the robe-wearing man and can clearly see black hair with golden bangs, which is a little unusual for a man looking like he does. But Issei isn't one to judge. He gets close and finally hands the man the colorful object. The man takes it with a smile. "Ah, thanks kid. I don't know how I'd fish without my lure. It'd be like hunting without any bullets," he kindly says to Issei. Issei waves it off. "No problem. I was just wandering off being bored, waiting for a phone call is all," he replies. The man ties his lure to a fishing pole that he picks up from his side and sits in a chair and casts out. He sets up his spot and even pulls out a cooler near his leg as well. He pulls out what appears to be a candy bar. "Ah, a nice candy bar really hits the spot. You want one?" he offers. Issei accepts and takes a whole candy bar from the guy and eats it. He checks his phone just to be sure that he hasn't missed anything from Yuma, while the older guy notices waiting for a call from a lady friend, I assume. He asks. Issei blushes a little. "Yeah, my girlfriend and me," he tries to say but is interrupted. "Say no more. A girlfriend now, that's something no man needs to question," the man says with his hand on his chin. Issei bites into his candy. "Yeah, she's really cute, nice, and he tries to explain as his thoughts are back to Yuma's cleavage. The man laughs a little. "Saw her jubblies if I had to guess, I remember when I saw my first pair. Ah man, that was a long time ago." Issei is curious about his story because he seems to remember it so vividly. He asks the man to tell his tale of this experience, or at least his feelings on it. The man thinks for a minute and tells his tale. "Let me think. I remember when I was much younger, there was this woman who was so beautiful, and her breasts were the stuff of legends. I mean, the thought of just being able to touch them was enough to plunge you into eternal bliss. I wanted her to mine so bad and so desperately that I made several dumb decisions, but if it meant getting a glimpse beneath her shirt, it was enough. Eventually, I found other ladies with great racks, bods, and just fun to be around." Issei is astounded by the description of the woman he mentioned and can't help but imagine the idea of such a woman. "Thinking of other women when you got a girlfriend isn't really a good sign, I hope you know," the man points out. The man catches a fish, a pretty big one, and celebrates a little by standing and pumping his fist. Issei is happy for him. After a moment of watching, Issei decides to leave as talking to the man more may be interesting, but he needs to think only of his girlfriend for the time. But as he walks away, the man smiles and seems to have taken a big interest in Issei. A little later, Rainer, still in her Yuma form, is waiting in anticipation for what her contact, the road priest named Fried Selzen, going to show her, since he promises it is better than what she'd hoped for. Though the smell could be better considering he's brought her into the sewers, Rainer isn't about to be picky, considering that she's trying to be under the radar herself. "Why did it take you so long anyway? I'd have thought there'd be information out there about former users of the sacred gear we're looking into," Yuma asks out of curiosity. Fried smiles. "Well, I was looking around, checked out some devil bitches, and then I met someone very cool." "You met someone? I thought you weren't going to do anything stupid, Selzen. I gave you orders not to talk to anyone you weren't supposed to," she tells him as she turns with frustration in her eyes. Fried simply keeps his smile, and then Rainer feels something is wrong and assumes her true form, but the moment she does, a large cut appears along the center of her chest, and she falls backward. Her blood spurts from her new wound and hits the walls of the sewers. "Should have waited until we got to the spot, cause now I gotta carry your ass there myself," Fried states while a sword glows in his hand, one that wasn't there before, and it looks powerful and has a unique appearance, like a long kriss. Rainer's vision begins getting blurry, and the last thing she sees is Fried walking towards her. Elsewhere, at the abandoned church, the three other fallen angels wait for Rainer to return with her news, since all they can see is Issei wandering around looking for her. They only started watching just 1 minute ago, so they don't know most of what's happened and are bored. "Man, when is he gonna find her? It's a pain in the ass not knowing what's going on," Middle states in her impatience. Onasik and Kalwerner remain silent, seeing it as pointless to speak right now, and they have more patience for their boss. "Well, what have we got here?" a voice echoes through the church. The three look around and summon their holy spears, their weapons of choice, and look around. "Now is that any way to greet your leader?" They look at the entrance and see someone they weren't expecting, the man Issei was speaking with earlier from the pier, but he is now wearing a new outfit consisting of a long red leather coat with multiple belts, red shoes, and gray pants. Upon seeing the man, the three puts away their spears and lower themselves in respect and collectively apologize to him. "Forgive us, Lord Azazel," they say with slight fear in their voice. The man that Issei met isn't just another old fart it appear, but the current leader of the fallen angels, the Grigori known as Azazel. He has a casual expression on his face and a non-threatening aura. "Bet yourselves up. I have a job for three of you," he says as he approaches. The three stand up and don't question him because they feel he may punish them for their defiance in joining Rainer, who was supposed to just watch Issei and see if his sacred gear could go out of control. But this worry is put away as he walks past them and simply looks at the damaged cross. "You know, I really should have you three get spanked 100 times for acting out, but then again that doesn't sound like something I do. No, I'll simply make Issei your superior when he joins us," he states with confidence. Alwiner stands up. "What, Lord Azazel, you're not seriously thinking of having that virgin join us, are you?" she asks with shock. Azazel scratches his chin. "Of course I am. That kid makes me think of why I became a fallen angel." The leader of the fallen angels turns around. He understands that breasts are worth dying for. He declares with great enthusiasm. The three fallen angels have surprised looks with "I can't believe he just said that" looks on their faces. Azazel chuckles a little and waves it off. "I know you three think he's kind of pathetic, and he is right now at least," he confirms to them. He then sits on the pedestal in front of the cross and assumes a casual sitting form, but just think of his potential. "I truly believe he is the new Red Dragon Emperor and possessor of the boosted gear. I can barely contain my excitement over this. If he joins us, becomes a fallen angel, then he can be one of our greatest fighters. I also just plain like him." The three cannot argue with Azazel, especially because he's found them out, so Rainer's plan is most likely ruined now, and they can't go along with her. The Hanasi tilts his hat slightly. "Do you want me to go get the kid, Lord Azazel?" he offers his master. Azazel waves his hand. "Nah, I got one of my best guys on that job already." The three wonder if he means Lord Barakiel, another Grigori, but they are wrong. In the city itself, a handsome young man with dark silver hair and hazel eyes and is wearing a dark green V-neck shirt with a high-collared black leather jacket over it. He also wears burgundy jeans with a silver chain drooping down over them and black leather chaps with 3 bands encircling his right calf and black shoes with black buckles. He is holding a picture of Issei and has a smile on his face. "So, this is the new Red Dragon Emperor. Sounds like fun to me, but if he hasn't awakened it yet, I'll have to be patient. But I can patient if means a good fight," he says with a smile. Issei awakes sometime later, but things couldn't be worse for him. He can barely see because it is a dark room and there is a musty smell in the air and he is stuck in a chair. He sees 2 figures in front of him that get clearer as his vision gets steadier and notices wings. "You finally awake yet?" one of the figures asks. The other figures turn towards the other. "Let me try something, Dehanasik." Issei gets a clearer picture and sees who he thought was a girl named Missa. But, thinking about it, Issei can't actually recall knowing anything about her. She approaches him and then pulls out an object from her skirt which catches Issei's eye and he is about to open his eyes fully, but a clicking sound is heard. Moments later, Issei begins screaming as electricity runs through his body and he can't stand it. Not soon enough, the electricity stops flowing and Issei begins twitching a little. Onasi takes whatever Middle had in her hand. "Are you stupid? We need 'em not fried, you dunce," he tells her. Middle gets a sour look. "Well, I didn't see you trying anything, hard ass," she retorts. Issei sits up straight once the shock passes and coughs a little. He now clearly sees the 2 people in front of him and is confused by this. "Who are you both?" he asks them. Onasi messes with his hat a little. "The thing is, kid, we've got no reason to answer your questions," he explains to Issei. Issei's hands are tied with rope and the chair is metal, but Issei can't see what shocked him, but he thinks it may have been a battery or something. Another minute passes until Donasi gets a little more threatening. "You see, yesterday, our boss went on a little evening stroll with you. And she met a pretty gruesome end from what we could tell." Issei remembers Yuma very clearly, but he had no idea that she was the boss of anybody. But he worries about what is going to happen next. Donasi can see the hurt in Issei's eyes from remembering Yuma and smirks at that. "I guess your first really gets to you, doesn't it?" Anyway, he tries to explain. Middle cuts him off. "Yeah, and we want you to spill your guts about the exorcists that are here in the city. We know of the 2 right now, but we know there has to be others and we know they helped you yesterday." Issei begins to panic a little. "What are you talking about? I didn't. She. He can't think straight and his panic is very apparent to the 2 and then they get an idea. Onasi puts his hand on Issei's shoulder. "His good one, we've got a lady exorcist in our care and she isn't doing too well. Heard a friend of ours put a bullet in her back. If you're not honest with me, then I might be tempted to tell our friends too. I don't know. Slit her wrists and let her bleed out," he sadistically threatens. Worried if it could be Irina they have, Issei lowers his head with a look of defeat. "Just tell what you want to hear." He submits. The two smile and know they have power over him. Meanwhile, in the school area, Irina is running around looking for Issei knowing something is wrong. But she is catching too much attention at this point because of her running. But something does occur to her, if those two were tricking him, then they probably left the building or went somewhere quieter. Thinking this, she walks now to be less noticed and leaves the main building. She looks around the premise for somewhere they might have gone. Back at their location, Issei is sweating a little from this situation with his anxiety at the max, but he does his best to keep cool under the fire. Middle holds the button she pressed earlier with a faux innocent smile. Despite her holding the button, Donasik is in charge of this questioning. He looks at Issei with dead seriousness. We know that the other girl with earlier is an exorcist. But my question is, how much more are there? I'm not a big fan of surprises. Issei, in his best face, smiles. Why? Never had a good online date. He casually retorts. Middle, catching the vibe, presses the button again, causing Issei to be shocked more, and he begins screaming from the pain again, and this goes on for another few seconds, until Middle stops it. Issei's head lowers and he coughs a little blood from this intense experience. He weakly raises his head. Okay, they said there was 4 of them. But I just saw the 2 girls and I never saw the other 2. He says in a slight panic. Despite the pain, Issei is still trying to help and give the girls more time. His efforts aren't in vain since Donasik and Middle begin whispering to each other. After some moments of catching his breath, Issei thinks of anything else to say if they ask, as this is his only means of helping. Middle is the one to approach and she has that same innocent smile, and Issei is hoping that he'll get a break on this. However, this is not the truth, as Middle cruelly presses her thumb into Issei's bad shoulder and twists her finger to cause him very bad pain that gets him to cringe. She looks him in the eyes. Listen, Virgin, our boss is gone thanks to your girlfriend and her bitchy pal. We're not in the mood for bullshit. So either you cooperate or we'll flay the skin off both of them in front of you. She explains to him with malice in her tone. Issei has a picture of Irina smiling in his head, and the idea of her being harmed like that is not okay with him. Middle continues her twisting of his wound and waits for him to say anything else. But what goes through Issei's mind isn't potential lies to tell to these torturers, but to simply punch them, to do what the heroes in his favorite anime would do, punch the holy hell out of these two for threatening the person who saved his life. To focus all of his power into his fist like when Goku finished off King Piccolo and shut up these two. Issei grits his teeth and Middle thinks her little method is getting to him, which it is, but not in the way she's thinking. Issei's focus is getting clearer and then something amazing happens. Issei's left glows and then the rope binding it breaks away to reveal a jewel in the back of his hand, and then red is seen forming on his hand and forearm. He stands up. You won't touch a single hair on her hot bod, you winged ass monkeys. He shouts. Suddenly Middle's eyes go blank from shock and Donasik is blown away and through a wall. From the outside, Irina is approaching an old abandoned building she spotted, since it seems like the perfect spot for a hideout, and her suspicion proves true when she sees Donasik crash through a wall, and she immediately removes her civilian clothes and equips her Excalibur. Donasik quickly recovers and sees her running towards him, and he immediately flies away and flees, but his face shows he was hurt. Irina doesn't dwell on that since Issei is her priority. She runs through the hole in the wall and follows the destruction, seeing that Donasik went through 2 walls. Inside the building, Irina catches the last glimpses of Middle as she immediately explodes into a flock of black feathers that surround the room. Seeing the red fist and Issei attached to it, Irina is shocked by the sight. But what shocks her is Issei about to collapse, so she runs over and holds him to prevent his fall. I'm so glad you're okay. Irina tearfully expresses. She hugs him and looks at where there are, a closet-like area that is probably a storage room used before the building was abandoned. She then looks at what he was sitting in, an electric chair made with a large battery and some cables with metal around it. Seeing this, Irina gets the idea and becomes angry. Those fallen angels are animals. I can't believe they did this to you. She says to Issei. Irina helps Issei to a chair, a better one, and sits him down to help him rest. She feels so bad about leaving him like that, but she figures that those fallen angels must have messed with his memories to make him think he knew them, but it wasn't that good because they laid low. Since Irina didn't know what they looked like, she was at a disadvantage. Looking at Issei's condition, Irina is racked with guilt over not letting him stay home or actually taking him to a doctor since he needs help right now. Issei shakes his head at this. No, if you left me with a doctor, they would have killed me. If you left me alone anywhere, they would have killed me. Yeah, I'm just not safe without you right now. Not that I mind. Irina is happy to hear this, but she needs to get him something to help. She carries over to an old nurse's office in this building, which still has some viable medicine in it, so she replaces Issei's bandages on his shoulder, gives him some medicine for the bleeding. While she searches around for anything, Issei can't help but stare at her form, since her outfit is quite provocative, since it clings to her body nicely. He suddenly looks at his left hand and remembers what he did to Middle, his thoughts, and the power he suddenly displayed. Irina manages to get some clean water in a glass since the sink still works, and that's when she sees his hand, and it takes the form of a red fingerless gauntlet with a jewel on the back of the hand. She doesn't truly understand what it is, but she knows what to call it. "That's a sacred gear," she says with surprise. She didn't notice it at first due to her worry, but upon seeing this, Irina has an idea of why a fallen angel was after him in the first place. She also worries about it in his weakened condition, the people after him, and the problems that could arise from it awakening, since he was a normal human up to now. Issei gets his words back to explain what he told the fallen angels. "I think I got us some more time. I told them there were 4 of you guys out there. Can't say that believed me all the way. They also said that Yuma, or whatever her real name was the boss of their gang." Irina is pleased with Issei's efforts and is glad to hear that, but he also reminds her that they know about Zenobia. But without their leader, the one that got away may get aggressive and do something to harm Issei's family, and with that rogue priest on the loose, there are too many problems at the moment. Irina decides that once Issei can move properly again, they have to find Zenobia and finish the mission together. But they may also have to force Issei to come with them, now that the situation has changed for him. Back at the abandoned church, Zenobia is still on the ground, barely conscious, and her captors are talking with Donosik as he informs them of Issei killing Middled. Kalwerner, the woman who is now practically in charge, has to call the shots. However, Fried Selzen has his own ideas of the situation. "I say we just lure out that bitches and send those assholes at the church their skin as a don't fuck with us card," he suggests. Kalwerner isn't opposed to the idea, but they do need to play it safe. She looks at Zenobia and gets an idea. She walks over to the defeated exorcist and strips her down, which gives Fried a few ideas, but he is denied by Donosik. Kalwerner then uses some kind of magic to shrink a little, shorten her hair, and puts on Zenobia's outfit to impersonate her. "I'll lure them here, and the 2 of you ambush them. Then, we'll our last prize and be done with everything." Zenobia lies on the ground and is enraged that she can't move. Kalwerner kneels down to the girl whose form she has taken, smiles cruelly, and summons her spear. "I'll use your face and send them to a slaughter. But because you've caused us a much trouble," she utters to Zenobia. Kalwerner then takes her spear and slits both of Zenobia's wrists, stands up, and begins walking away. Her intention is to let Zenobia bleed to death, and it begins working as Zenobia's blood begins to line the floor around her. She hears them leaving and begins to lose consciousness. Her thoughts are frustration about what's going on and her helplessness about it. But, before she passes out, a pair of shoes approaches her, though she can't see who they belong to, not that it really matters, and she goes under, but she feels something fall on her. A dark chamber-like area, Rainer wakes up with her wound now healed from when Fried attacked her. She sees Fried kneeling in front of her. He has that same smirk on his face that he normally has, but this one feels cockier. Rainer immediately gets her senses back and looks where she was slashed, only to see it healed up. Confused, she looks at Fried with annoyance. "What happened to my cut? I thought you attacked me, you Judas priest." Fried shrugs. "Yeah, and my new boss patched up my work. Apparently, he has a soft spot for, shall we say, people lower on the totem pole." Rainer takes that last part with surprise, since Fried has met someone higher than her. He wouldn't work for a devil given the circumstances, so who is it? Fried approaches with the sword he used to cut Rainer, and she gets a good look at it. When she sees it, she instantly knows what it is, and it has a glow. "That's an Excalibur. How did an outcast like you get one?" Fried snickers. "Wouldn't you like to know, oh high and mighty angel?" Rainer is mad about this whole thing, and she hears a voice, one that she recognizes inside her head. "Fallen angel Rainer, I suppose it's been some time since I've seen you." Though she cannot see the person making the voice, she trembles a little. "Good, it seems introductions aren't necessary. I've need of your services." Rainer lowers her head in defeat because she knows that she can't fight this person, even if she got a surprise ally or even a miracle. Outside, Issei is waiting for Yuma to call him and waits in the park. He sits on a bench and groans a little. He just wants to talk to her some more and hopefully get their relationship further. While waiting, Issei approached by someone from the side. "Ah, finally found you, Issei. Hide you, I think." Issei looks around and sees a young man who swings his fist and successfully punches Issei in the side of his face, and this punch is strong enough to knock Issei off the bench. Issei hits the ground with a red mark on his face from being punched and is winded by it. The young man shrugs a little with disappointment. "I only barely hit you and you're already on the ground. Looks like I'll have to wait longer than I thought." Issei picks himself up a little, but the young man walks over and offers him a hand. Issei, despite being assaulted by him, accepts the help and gets back on his feet. Frustrated about what just happened to him, Issei immediately swings back, but the young man simply moves his side to side with ease and has a simply disappointed look on his face. "I thought you'd be at least average in skill, but man, this is weak," he mockingly says. Issei stops and the young man raises his hand to stop the tension and even apologizes for suddenly attacking him. Naturally, Issei isn't happy about being attacked so suddenly. Hey, what was that about? I was just sitting here, minding my own business, and you start swinging at me like a slab of beef or something. The young man just has a plain look towards Issei. I said I was sorry. He simply states. Issei just lets it go because he doesn't want to deal with any problems while waiting for his girlfriend, so he just sits back on the bench and checks his phone to see if Yuma sent any message while he was being messed with by this random guy with silver hair. She's not gonna send you a message. The young man tells Issei. Issei looks at him. What do you know? He replies. The young man takes the phone from Issei and checks the number while Issei tries to get his phone back unsuccessfully. He checks the number for Yuma and nods a little. Really classy Yuma. Amano wonder why she picked that name. Issei is confused and backs off while the young man hands him his phone back and casually introduces himself. Oh yeah, I'm Volley by the way. Volley extends his hand for a shake, but Issei refuses and is wondering why he is speaking about Yuma like that. What do you mean she picked that name? Issei asks distrustfully. Thinking for a moment, Volley puts his hand to his chin. Yeah, I think that you should just come with me instead, Issei Haidu. Upon hearing Volley say his name, Issei is naturally a little flipped out, but has a passing thought that maybe this Volley guy could be someone Yuma knows or a friend of hers even. Reluctant, Issei nods a little. Sure, I guess, he softly says. After a moment, the two young men begin walking with Issei following Volley. They don't really talk much, just bits and pieces of random things they come across. About a few minutes later, Issei and Volley arrive near the abandoned church. Volley looks at the building like it is nothing, but Issei has a very suspicious look on his face. Volley turns and sees Issei's face. Come on, it's not like I'm gonna attack you in there. He comments. Yeah, like at the park when I was minding my own business. Issei retorts. Listen, Issei, I know something about your little girlfriend that you're not going to want to hear. So I'm not going to be the one to tell you. That's what our friend in here is going to tell you. Issei thinks about it and he just remains ignorant of the whole thing in bliss, but if Yuma is in danger or something else, he wants to know. Issei assures himself that he'll do it for her as fiddles with his necklace that he got from her. He and Volley open the doors of the church and Issei instantly sees three people with wings sticking out of their backs with feathers black as night standing near an altar where a man, their leader, sits casually with a smile on his face. You finally made it, Issei. I'm glad Volley brought you here. Volley simply walks to the side with a smile on his face while Issei gets a good look at their leader, and he is the older man from earlier at the docks. Issei is stunned by this, but not nearly as stunned when he sees the three winged people actually fly in the air above him. The older man looks at ceiling. I thought it'd be easier to show you right away. Since what I'm about to tell you is going to blow your mind, kid. The man stands up and approaches Issei, who can't take his eyes off the people flying above him. What did that Volley guy drug me with? Issei softly remarks. The three flying above him lower to the ground and Issei looks upon the older man before him. He isn't afraid of him, but even Issei can tell this guy is dangerous. This man looks at Issei with a clear sense of confidence. Sorry that I didn't introduce myself properly. I just wanted to be sure on something before we actually got into the major discussion. He explains. Issei wonders what these discussions are, and the man grabs Issei's necklace, but Issei pushes the man's hand aside. My girlfriend gave me this, so keep your mitts off it. Hearing this statement from Issei, the three with wings begin to snicker, but the older man turns towards them and gives them a cold look which silences them. He looks back at Issei and sighs a little. Now here's the part that I really wish I didn't have to do. Issei is nervous about what is to come, but he has to listen as the man explains. Firstly, I am Azazel, and these three little birdies behind me are my less than exceptional followers. Turns at the three again, considering they disobeyed me. Looks back at Issei, but the girl you know as Yuma Amano really didn't want to do this, but she's lying to you about everything. No way, man. Issei interrupts. Azazel puts his hand on Issei's mouth to silence him further. I know that isn't easy to hear, but I'm the one who sent her to observe you. Her real name is Rainer, and she was being a naughty girl from what I heard. She, myself, and those three are, well, just to say it, we're fallen angels. You know, the ones that were cast out in that junk. Issei's eyes roll a little, giving a yeah right vibe, but Azazel responds by letting out his own wings, 12 jet black wings, and uses his opposite arm to show Issei something. He produces a spear that glows like a light, and it shoots towards the altar that he sat on, and it obliterates it with Issei's eyes lighting up a little. That was a minor trick for me. Azazel comments. Azazel lowers his other hand to let Issei speak, but he is beyond words. After moments, Issei figures that Azazel isn't lying to him, and by extension, he worries about Yuma, or rather Rainer as he claims. He begins wondering about his first date with her, his first kiss from her, and his time with her. Azazel looks at Issei with pure empathy towards him. He puts his hand on Issei's shoulder. I'm really sorry, kid. I told her to just watch you, I didn't think she'd go that far. Issei looks down. Why me? He sadly says. Azazel takes a breath because I found out that a dangerous sacred gear, a powerful artifact, was dormant in you. I didn't want it to go out of control while you're human, so I sent her to watch you. My plan was to leave you alone, but things changed, to say the least. Azazel gives Issei a brief description on sacred gears and that this one dormant in him could have gone berserk and he could hurt people without meaning to. Issei wonders what it could be if it is so dangerous, but Azazel's eyes begin to shine with excitement while he happily explains to him what he has. I think it's because your gear is one of the most powerful there is. Issei looks at his arms and looks at his body, wondering if such a thing could be in his body when he's never felt anything weird in his life like that. With that explanation out of the way, Issei has to know one more thing. But where is Yuma now? Or whatever her real name is. Azazel understands that the first one really gets to you and he does, in fact, know where his subordinate is, he isn't ignorant of it. He makes an offer for Issei. Kid, I know the first one is your biggest clenches, but this one is dangerous. I have a feeling that another traitor is behind this. I could send you in together with these three or volley, but as you are now. Issei looks at Azazel with determination. Do whatever you need to. I need to hear it from her mouth. I'll do anything to save her, even if she did lie to me. Yuma is my first girlfriend, so I'm not backing off from this. Azazel smiles, but makes it clear. Issei Haidu, I'm stating one clear thing. I want you to join me and be my new subordinate. If you do that, there's no going back. But in exchange, I'll promise to make it as fun and exciting as possible. Issei nods. Does this mean I get wings like you? Azazel laughs a little and puts his hand on Issei's head. Kid, I've got a feeling that I'm really going to like you a lot more than I already do. Just remember one thing. Issei wonders what this one thing is. W's are worth dying for. Azazel declares. Issei then gives a salute. Sir, they sure are, sir. That bit was mostly to cheer up Issei. The three fallen angels give somewhat disappointing works, but Azazel turns towards them, gives them a smirk, and tells something they don't want to hear. Well, guess what? Issei is going to be your boss in a little, so how do you three like that? They each put on shocked looks because Azazel is serious. Clearly, this is also punishment for insubordination. Issei is ready to accept whatever Azazel plans to do for closure with his girlfriend and will also do anything to help her, even she did lie to him. Volley approaches Issei from the side, pats him on the shoulder, and gives him an approving nod. Don't worry, I'll teach you how to really fight. I won't leave you out to dry. Issei is a little iffy about letting a guy who randomly assaulted him train him, but he'll need Volley's help with this, and he knows it. Azazel leads Issei to a different room because there is another change needed that Issei must go through, at least he wants to do it. Just from their brief talking, Issei feels a connection with Azazel and is going to need his help with everything that's going to happen. The three fallen angels don't like the situation, but they have little choice since they know they can't take either Azazel or Volley. They know that they got off easy with everything considered. But they may have to break it to Issei that his necklace, a thing he treasures, is just a tool to spy on him. Azazel didn't say because he didn't want to and Volley didn't because it isn't his business. The three are waiting at the moment because a new fallen angel is about to be born. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support the Azurknight for writing that awesome fanfic. See you in the next video. Goodbye.